Well, I found that programming this trainer is a real pain in the rear. You have to set an address and hit address latch enable, and then set a data, and then hit the right, and then repeat that over and over and over and over and over again. I thought, oh, this is going to take way too long. So I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and program the ROM chip with my programmer and give up on all those switches. So my recommendation is don't buy this kit unless you have a PROM programmer, because otherwise it's just a total waste of thumb and finger pain moving those little switches up and down all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and test this board the way that I tested the 8085 single board computer. The first program I wrote was to toggle the serial data line output on the 8085, the special addition to the 8085 that wasn't there during the 8080 days. And it uses something called the sim instruction. The sim instruction has multi-functions depending on how the accumulator is set. So you have to set the accumulator first and then issue the SIM command. And the way that you set the accumulator is according to this bit pattern here. You can see we're really only interested in bits 6 and 7. All the others can be 0. So if we want to actually talk to the serial output line, D6 must be high. And then whether the data is high or low depends on bit 7. So if bit 7 is set, then the serial output will go high. If bit 7 is 0, then the data will be low. The only two valid hex codes then would be a 40, which would be talk to the serial output line, but send it as 0, and then a C0, which would be 1, 1 with all the rest zeros, which would be talk to the serial line and set it high. So if we do a 4, if we move 40 into the accumulator and then do a sim, that will set it low. And if we load the accumulator with C0 and then do a sim instruction, that will set the serial data line high. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do that with the Mini Pro. And I just went ahead and typed it in. So 3E is the load accumulator with C0. We're going to do the sim command, which is 30. And then we're going to load the accumulator with 40. And then we're going to execute the sim command. And then we're going to do a jump 0, 0. So we're going to execute this loop over and over and over again. So I programmed the ROM chip and put it into the trainer. And let's see if it worked. All right, so we have the ROM programmed. And I'm have a connection to pin 4 on the 8085, which is the serial output line, and that's going to the oscilloscope. And so oscilloscope is up here, and we can see that we're getting a output on the SID line, or the serial. What do they call it on the 8085? It's called the SOD line, serial output data. There's an SID line for input and SOD line for output. If I hit the reset, it goes low, let it run, comes back high. So the board's working. It's good news. So again, my recommendation is if you don't have one of these, do not buy one of these. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to be very happy flipping those switches. They're kind of a pain. So now we have basically debugged everything. There's one thing that I really don't like. When you start this project up, they have you build it along the way, and you don't have the 8085 socketed. I mean, you don't even have the part in the socket. And you're talking to the... When you're pushing the address latch enable, what you're actually doing is you're toggling the ALE line. The ALE line toggles the address latch. Remember, the lower 8 bits of address, and the data lines are multiplexed on the same 8 bits. So you actually have to latch those to be able to use them. The address lines get latched with the address latch enable out of the 8085. If the 8085 isn't there, then you're pushing this button, which actually grounds that pin and puts the data that you have on the switches into this part. And then once they're latched in there, then you can set them and hit the right, and it sends the data to this part. So it's kind of convoluted. So when you finally get around to getting to put in the 8085, there's a step that you have to do, which is you have to remove J10. J10 is a jumper to ground, and it is also connected right here to the ALE line. So you would have the ALE line of the 8085 connected directly to ground. Not good for the 8085. So before you plug the 8085 in, you must remove jumper J10. Then there's this funny 1K resistor that allows the ALE button to be either go to ground or to go to plus. When you hit the ALE line, it goes into the high state. So when you're actually running the board, the 1K resistor is still in the ALE line. And let's take a look at that on the oscilloscope. Let me move over here to the ALE line. So you can see I'm monitoring the ALE line now, and the ALE line is this ugly waveform. What I'm going to do is, so the reason it looks ugly is because it has a 1K resistor in there. It's not really letting it pull high very quickly. So I'm going to short out that 1K resistor with a jumper here. And you can see that it gets nice and square when I short it out. So my recommendation is when you change over to using the 8085 and actually writing programs, don't bother with the switches. Program it with the PROM programmer directly, and then replace this 1K resistor. I think I'm going to put 100 ohms there. I don't think I want to short it out. Maybe I'll just leave it shorted out. It's up to you whether you put a low value there just kind of for protection, or short it out, which is how you would actually build a real circuit. So I probably will just short it out. But remember to remove J10, and then maybe move the jumper from J10 to across that 1K resistor. It won't, if you do that, you won't be able to use that ALE line to do much programming. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a kludge. So I think the best thing to do now is just to use it as a computer, program it directly with the PROM programmer, ignore most of the switches, and concentrate on their monitor program. Now their monitor program is going to be able to run these switches here and run these LEDs, so I don't think you won't have to toggle these switches any longer. You'll be able to do it all from the monitor program. So we'll give that a try.